next meeting.
Item 9C, receive oral report on current development activity in the city.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm extremely pleased to present this report to you tonight about current development activity here in the city of San Bruno. The news is extremely positive. Development interest and activity are both very strong here in our community. There are a number of projects, major projects under construction currently in the city, and more projects are in the pipeline and under review. My intent tonight is to highlight some of the key projects and to respond to your questions regarding our current development activity. But first, I would like to talk a little bit about why are we experiencing this level of activity. First, as we know, we have a surging economy here in this region. Between 2010 and 2015, 72,800 new jobs were created in San Mateo County. Our location, 12 miles south of San Francisco, proximate to Silicon Valley, and as the chief mentioned, we're a transit hub. In 2013, after several years of effort, the City Council here adopted the Transit Corridors Plan that provided a clear vision for what the community was looking for in the downtown and surrounding area, a 155-acre area of our community, creating a transit-friendly, transit-accessible, mixed-use, compact development area. And then in 2014, just a year later, you went back to the voters and Measure N was passed by 67% when only a simple majority was required to provide some incentives, some financial incentives to see the TCP, the Transit Corridors Plan, realized. The amendment to Ordinance 1284 covered areas such as increasing building heights in the TCP area, the Transit Corridors Plan area. It also increased residential densities and allows for above-ground parking garages to meet our parking needs in this area. Creating a vision for a revitalized, compact, mixed-use area, transit-accessible, bicycle-friendly, a place to gather, pedestrian-friendly has been key. So these are some of the ingredients I feel that have really been instrumental in some of the development activity that we're seeing, and it's robust. So at this point, let me go through some of our projects, some of the things that are occurring. Let's start with 3 projects that are in construction right now. We're very familiar with these. The Plaza Apartments at 406, 418 San Mateo Avenue. It's our first mixed-use project in our downtown area. It's well under construction. It's 3 stories, 83 apartments, 7,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space. It's the gateway to our downtown coming from El Camino Real from the south. On San Bruno Avenue West, we have a medical office building, also in the Transit Corridors Plan. It's under construction. It's 2 stories, it's 15,000 square feet, and that project should be completed sometime this fall. Another project, the third one, that's under construction and well under construction is a project in the Bay Hill area, the Bay Hill Office Park area. It's at 1250 Grundy. It's a 67,000 square foot office building for the SF Police Credit Union. Well under construction, should be completed by the end of this year. Also in the Bay Hill area, we have the Bay Hill Shopping Center. And I'm pleased to point out that we just issued a building permit to proceed with this project just this past couple of days. The intent here is really for a facelift for the Bay Hill Shopping Center, to look at new facade improvements, to kind of update, provide a more contemporary look for the shopping center, to provide pedestrian pathways, outdoor dining areas, bicycle racks, landscape improvements. This project is soon to go into construction and should be finished about October of this year. We've been working with the San Mateo County Community College District and Skyline College directly to do a residential project on an 8-acre property at Skyline College. Really two pieces to this. It's 70 units overall. 40 units are single-family residential, and 30 units are for faculty and staff housing. Total of 8-acre site. The project has been approved, was approved in February of this year, and building permits should be issued in June, and there's about an 18-month construction period. I've got two slides on this one. The first slide was the single-family residential portion and kind of the layout. This slide shows the faculty and staff housing. Going forward to a project that's in the pipeline under review. This project is on San Mateo Avenue at San Bruno Avenue at Huntington, to be more precise, Huntington and San Bruno Avenue. And this project is referred to as 111 San Bruno Avenue. It's directly across from the Caltrain station and really provides the essence of what we've been talking about in terms of the TCP, the Transit Corridors Plan, creating the opportunity to provide for mixed-use development, ground floor commercial with residential units above, close to transit-friendly, really giving people the opportunity to walk to transit, to walk to services, and to provide housing near to this area. This project is about 60 units. It's got about 8,600 square feet of ground floor commercial. We've been working with the applicants on this, and actually staff had a role in bringing together two property owners to really create a larger project more consistent with a TCP in terms of merging smaller parcels and to create a more real and feasible development opportunity. We're expecting this project to go forward to our Planning Commission possibly in June or July would be the next meeting date on this project. Another project here, and I'll correct the heading on this, the project is 271 El Camino Real, and this is a multi-family residential project. This is the site of the former Lee's Buffet, and staff worked with the property owner to have the existing building removed from that property, and as we've been trying to do, as there have been removals of existing buildings, we've been trying to make sure that the sites are cleared, secured, fenced, and then landscaped, because it does take some time to go from demolition and removal to receiving approvals for development and then construction. We want to make sure that during that period of time, which can be a few years in some cases, that the site is clean, clear, and secured. You'll see that in this case. Right now we're working with the applicant. We've received an application for 24 units here. 8 of the units would be townhomes, 16 of the units would be apartments. We're working with the applicant to gather information and deem the application complete for processing. There has been a neighborhood meeting on this, and we've received some very valuable feedback from neighbors in terms of the interface of this project to the project, actually the existing homes to the rear on Linden. And we'll be addressing that interface in terms of moving forward with this project. This is another project in the Transit Corridors Plan area. It's on El Camino Real. It's the existing Mills Park Plaza. It's a commercial development that you're very familiar with, 1- and 2-story existing development. And the idea here, it's about 4.5 acres in total area, is to redevelop this site, redevelop it into 2 different development areas and create the opportunity for about 45,000 square feet or so of ground floor retail and possibly 400 dwelling units. This is another circumstance where staff worked with 2 separate property owners to bring the property owners together to encourage them to create a partnership or sale one to the other to enable, again, a larger mixed-use project that's more in keeping with the Transit Corridors Plan. This project, we just received a revised application for this site as the key property owner, the G.W. Williams Company that owns the Mills Park Plaza just came together with the Welsh partnership, family partnership, and as a result, they've been able to add the furniture store property nearby across the street from our library. And with that, they were able to modify the application, submit it, and now it's a project of about 400 units and again about 45,000 square feet of ground floor commercial. This project, we just received the revised application. It has already gone before a neighborhood meeting group. It has gone before the Architecture Review Committee, so we'll be evaluating this revised application for completeness and for further processing. There's been a site on El Camino Real long vacant and a site that required remediation, as you probably recall. The site is at 160 El Camino Real. It's next door to the Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate Company. It's been long vacant. It's a closed site in terms of remediation. The remediation of the site has been finished. And at this time, we've received an application for a 3-story hotel, 34 rooms, a 34-room hotel, and that application is in and being reviewed by our staff currently. Next project, also in the Transit Corridors Plan area, is a smaller project. It's an infill site. We have had this site in review for some time. There's an existing medical office building on this property that's been long vacant. It's a smaller site, but there's an opportunity to do infill here, residential infill, and there's an opportunity with our codes to put about 9 residential units on this property. We have been working with the property owner. There has been a neighborhood meeting. At this point, we are waiting for some additional information from the applicant, and we expect to receive that shortly, within the next couple of weeks, and we'll be able to, with that information, hopefully deem the application complete for further processing and move it forward. The Crossing Hotel project is a project that's been around for a while. It's a proposed, and I'll even say approved, better said, 5-story hotel with 152 rooms and 3,000 square feet of meeting space. This is on El Camino Real, behind the Jack's restaurant, on a vacant parcel of land that's been owned by the city. We do have an approved project, and we are working with a developer, OTO, and trying to sort out some things in terms of working with the Department of Industrial Relations to determine if prevailing wage would be a requirement for this project. We've requested information from the DIR and expect to receive that shortly, and then be able to pass that on to OTO, the developer, and hopefully be able to move that project forward. The Budget Motel site on El Camino Real, a property that's been in poor repair for many years. Staff worked diligently with the property owner to work in the direction of really redeveloping the site. The building itself, the Budget Motel, really was pretty obsolete. Property owner was evaluating whether to rehab the building or do new construction. We encouraged, staff really encouraged, given the condition of that property, to go in the direction of new construction. The property owner agreed. The site has been cleared of the old building. It's been secured, as you see, with the fencing and landscaping. And at this time, we're working with the property owner on a development proposal. They've shown us a proposed project. It's not been submitted, but something like possibly either a mixed-use project with ground floor commercial and some sort of residential use above, could be apartments above, or the potential for a motel. They're going back and forth on this concept, and they're really working on a preliminary development plan. Mixed use, accommodation use, residential are all permitted at this location. So we're really waiting to see what comes in the door. We've had a few meetings with the property owners' representatives on this property. The Bay Hill specific plan, this is an extremely exciting project for San Bruno. And as we know, and we've been discussing for some time, YouTube is proposing a fairly major expansion within our community. And as we've worked with YouTube, we've indicated that we certainly want to work with them in terms of their business interests and expansion opportunities. But at the same time, we want to make sure that those expansion interests are considered in the context of other property owner interests within the Bay Hill area and broader community interests. We requested, essentially required, that a specific plan, a comprehensive planning effort be done for this proposed expansion, not to just take the proposed expansion on as an individual project, but to look at it in the broader context of impacts and needs within Bay Hill and within the broader community. YouTube has agreed to that. YouTube is funding the preparation of the specific plan. At this point, we have several concept alternatives, 4 concept alternatives that we expect to bring forward shortly, hopefully this next month of June. And that's after having substantial community outreach and engagement with yourselves, with community members at a workshop, property owner forum, et cetera. So we've reached out, received a lot of good information from our community. That information has been used by staff and the consultant team to put together 4 concept alternatives that will be presented again out to the public to receive feedback and to move in the direction of identifying a preferred alternative for how this area could be developed and redeveloped into the future. And that preferred alternative would then be the base for preparing the specific plan and doing a full environmental impact report. We're hoping that this project, it's a very, very, it's complex, it's a lot of work, it's very, very important project for this community. We're hoping to be able to complete it by the end of this year. Some other updates, some other topics came up in discussions with other staff members, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about those as well. In our community, we noticed that we heard from Melody Toyota that they were shutting down both their sales office on El Camino Real at 750 El Camino Real and also their service department at 222 San Bruno Avenue. We followed up with representatives of Melody Toyota and heard about this transfer. Actually, as it turns out, this is a transfer of ownership. We also heard from the Victory Automotive Group, and Victory Automotive Group has indicated an interest and has exercised that interest in acquiring Melody Toyota. So what you're seeing there is that Melody Toyota has phased out, and the new ownership group is the Victory Group, the Victory Automotive Group, and they have taken over that property and are continuing essentially at this time to operate Melody Toyota. Our staff will be working with the representatives of the Victory Automotive Group to review with them the existing conditions of CUPs, conditional use permits that are in place to make sure that there's knowledge of the conditions and adherence to those conditions. So that's something we'll be doing with the Victory Automotive Group. The next topic is the shops at Tanforan. As all council members are well aware, a couple of years ago, the real estate arm of a pension group in Australia, QIC, acquired the mall itself, about 11 acres of the overall 45-acre property at the shops at Tanforan. There are other ownerships at the shops at Tanforan. There's Target, there's JCPenney, JCP, there's Sears, and then adjunct is BART. So there are different ownership groups and interests. We've been meeting periodically with representatives of QIC. They've indicated a strong interest in reimagining the shops at Tanforan to create more of a destination to look at different types of uses there with the change in retailing, with the internet, et cetera, and thinking maybe about bringing more restaurants, entertainment, perhaps even a boutique hotel, offices, a gym, a 24-hour gym. So really kind of rethinking how that property, the overall 45-acre property, could be developed or redeveloped over time. They have not necessarily produced a master plan yet. They've shown us, examples of some of the ideas they have, but they haven't really been able to put together a formal master plan for us to review yet. And there are a couple of things going on, just to make sure that you're aware of this. Many of you probably are, but because of the different ownership groups, I think that QIC would prefer to control the property, the 45-acre property. I think that would be an objective of theirs. But in the meantime, if that's not possible, to at least bring the property owners together so that there's support for an overall master plan. So kind of working in two directions, try to bring people together so there's support for a master plan that they would lead, or that in some way they would take control of the overall property. That's one piece of it. The other piece of it is that they're working with BART and the BART board in terms of that connection between BART and the mall, and they'd like to have a stronger connection between, a more attractive, stronger connection between BART and the overall mall. And in addition, QIC is expanding tremendously within the United States from Australia, and they've been acquiring Forest City properties, and I've heard that they've added something like 220 or so new staff members. So there's an expansion going on. There's kind of figuring out how to better control that property, and then there's coordination with BART. So we meet with representatives of QIC periodically. We've encouraged them to come forward with their master plan, but we realize that they have some business interests that they have to take care of along the way. The next topic is the 500 block of San Mateo Avenue. This is the location where there was the Golden Shovel Challenge, where the Cal and Stanford students came together, and it's the area bounded by San Mateo Avenue, Angus, Mastic, and Sylvan Avenues. And the students from Cal and Stanford worked with our staff and with our community and our community leaders on looking at, with the benefit of the transit corridors plan, because that's the governing document for that area, what could that one block area look like in the future? And they came up with some development scenarios and phasing ideas for basically mixed-use development. They had everything from micro residential units, to a plaza, parking, just a whole variety of things. Very, very informative, very helpful. The interesting thing is that some of the property owners within the 500 block of San Mateo Avenue got interested based on that work and have been contacting staff periodically and are kind of interested in bringing together a number of property owners in that block to see if something like what the students put together and in accordance with the transit corridors plan could be assembled, assembling property owners and whatnot, and bring that forward to the city, including looking at our city parking lots in that area and looking at some sort of public-private partnership where perhaps a parking garage could be built along with residential units and commercial, et cetera. Again, the concept in the TCP is to kind of have a more traditional retail frontage on San Mateo Avenue, and in any case, for the parking garages, kind of wrap the parking garages with attractive development. So those are some of the topics that staff members brought up for me to share with you, and I'm here to respond to any of your questions regarding these development activity projects that I've highlighted, or other current development activity that you may be interested in that I could respond to. I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Questions? Michael?
Thank you. So David, for starters, thank you for the presentation. Back in, I think it was January, Laura and I had a similar version of this presentation, and I thought it was really interesting then, and I still think it's really interesting. And I definitely appreciate having this sort of global view of all of the different projects at once, because it is hard to keep track of everything, and sometimes we forget about everything that's going on. So I believe it gives us an appreciation for everything that you and your department are working on, as well as helping us realize the full impact of everything that's going on in the city. So thank you for putting this together. Your comment on the fences, I just wanted to comment that I have noticed that a lot of the vacant properties look a lot nicer. They all have the nice fences, and they're being maintained fairly well. So thank you again for your attention to that. I know it makes a huge difference. In the past, we did have issues with these vacant lots, and you've been staying on top of them, so that's great. A lot of the projects I saw in the presentation are three-story projects, which I thought was interesting because when we passed Measure N, we removed that height restriction, but a lot of the projects are still coming in that size, which in my opinion anyway is more appropriate for a lot of this area. So I was pleased to see that a lot of these proposed projects are coming in within that height limit. But to that, I had a question from somebody about the Plaza Apartments, which is labeled a three-story unit, but it does appear to have sections of it that go to a fourth level. And so my question is, what constitutes a level? Are we allowing, say, portions of a story to exceed beyond something, even though it's being basically approved as a three-story? How does that fit in?
Sure, I'd be happy to respond to that and use that as an example. There are two factors that apply. One is stories, the other is building height. So for Measure N, for example, in the downtown area on San Mateo Avenue, the allowed building height per Measure N is 55 feet maximum. In terms of our municipal code, we do allow for loft space, and so loft space is what you're seeing with the Plaza project. So for example, as you see the fenestration, the windows that suggest as you look at it a fourth story or floor, actually those areas are meeting the definition of loft space, and basically what that definition is that as viewed from the level below in the loft space, it has to be open to the area below, and overall the loft can't be more than 50% of the area immediately below. The plaza is within the 55-foot maximum height limit for the TCP per Measure N, and the areas that you're seeing, the community is seeing, is loft space, and it does meet the municipal code for lofts.
Okay. All right. So they're lofts, basically.
They're lofts.
Okay.
There.
All right. Thank you.
They're lofts. Yes.
Other questions or comments from council?
I have a question. David, is a copy
Laura?
of this report or something like this on our website? I know that there are certain projects around, but all these, this is a great report, and I think, like Michael said, when we first joined the council, it was really good to get an overview of all those projects, because residents are interested, and it's so good to see the work that's being done and what's happening in the future.
The development activity report is on the city's website within the community development department. I've added a few projects here, and what I'll do is I'll work with staff and we'll update that development activity report based on this presentation tonight to expand the number of projects and maybe some of the detail as well. So we'll do that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I just
Irene.
want to thank you, David, for all the work you've done. I know a lot of the changes and a lot of the cooperation between different property owners is directly a result of your efforts. So I do want to thank you. I know San Bruno will benefit.
Thank you.
Marty?
Yes, thank you. It's great getting an update to see how everything's working out. I really appreciate the effort that it took to put the nicer fencing around the demolished buildings. The property at San Luis doesn't have that fencing, but I'm hoping that now that they're in that preliminary planning stage that they go ahead and put that fence up, because it's pretty unsightly. They let the weeds get up pretty high, and it just doesn't look good on our El Camino. And also the gas station over there along San Bruno Avenue, north of 111 San Bruno Avenue. It looks really rough, and some attention there, and cooperation from the tenant or from the owner would be great.
Okay, we'll look at those for sure.
The one question, the clarification in the process, so the community for Mills Plaza development, it was around 329 units originally, or somewhere around there, I can't remember. But, so, how does that work now? Since the revised plans is another 70 units, how is that going to work with the community outreach and meetings?
That project will need to go to the Architecture Review Committee, would be a next step. At this point, we did have the neighborhood meeting. We had a good turnout at a neighborhood meeting. We did have a pre-submittal meeting, which is required per the TCP and Measure N in terms of the mixed use to residential transition measures. So we did do that, and we did get a lot of good feedback. Actually, in terms of adding this piece, we were staff was encouraging that this piece be added because there was some discussion about creating, for example, view corridors, because this is a project that actually is being proposed at 5 stories. It's allowed on El Camino Real to be up to 5 stories or 70 feet. It is being proposed as 5 stories. Some of the comments that we received both at the neighborhood meeting and at the Architecture Review pre-submittal meeting prior to submitting an application had to do with opportunities for distant view corridors. We're thinking that actually there's going to be a greater opportunity to do that with this additional piece of land. So I would imagine that all the comments that we received both at the Architectural Review Committee meeting and at the neighborhood meeting would be used, and we would review the application. As we go to the Architectural Review Committee, we'll summarize those prior comments, and to the extent the applicant has or has not addressed those. And so it would go to an Architectural Review Committee meeting first before going on to Planning Commission and then on to City Council. So there would be those noticed meetings and hearings going forward. We would not go back. We would go forward, but we would certainly bring forward all the past comments.
Just so I understand, so the residents that showed up to the first meeting, are they going to get another notification that there was a change in the plans from
Yes.
330 to 400?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And then they can, at the later meetings, they'll address the comments?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you.
And then finally, David, yes, thank you for the report. I think it's important. I know we're going to maybe do another one in about 4 months or so, and just to keep the community updated, the council updated, and I think that's some interest I've heard from council last year, and so we wanted to keep that going, but I appreciate that, the time and effort that you placed into that to give us an update. Thank you.
You're very welcome.